There's this person you follow online who spent all of 2023 posting minimalist apartment photos. White walls, 3 pieces of furniture, captions about less is more, and finding peace in emptiness. Their whole identity was rejecting consumerism, living intentionally, owning only what sparks joy.
Then something shifted. By early 2024, the feed changed completely. Suddenly, it's maximalist chaos, cluttered shelves, vintage finds, bold patterns everywhere, captions about more is more, and expressing yourself through stuff. Same person, opposite philosophy, same level of conviction. It wasn't gradual, it was a switch. One month they're Marie Kondo, the next they're an antique hoarder. And both versions were presented as their authentic selves, their real truth, what they've always believed deep down.
Or think about that woman in your life with the Stanley Cup collection. She has 7 of them. Different colors, limited editions, the one that was impossible to get. She needed them all because everyone else had them.
Before Stanley, it was the Dyson Airwrap. Before that, the Olaplex routine. Before that, the cloud couch everyone was posting. She's constantly buying whatever's trending, convinced each purchase is essential, life-changing, the missing piece.
But here's the thing. 6 months later, the Stanley Cups are shoved in the back of the cabinet. She never mentions them. She's moved on to whatever the new viral product is, with the exact same urgency and conviction that this one actually matters.
I've caught myself doing versions of this, adopting opinions because I saw them repeated enough times that they started feeling like my own thoughts, using phrases that weren't mine, building entire arguments from recycled takes I absorbed without questioning.
There's this uncomfortable moment when you realize you're mid-sentence saying something you don't actually believe. You're just performing a script you've seen validated 1,000 times, and you forgot to check if you actually agreed with it. It's not about being fake. It's about losing track of where influence ends and original thought begins. About mistaking exposure for understanding, repetition for truth, trending for meaningful. Maybe you've noticed this in yourself too. That opinion you held passionately for 3 weeks that you can barely remember now. That stance that felt urgent when everyone was talking about it, then evaporated when the conversation moved on. There's a specific type of person who lives entirely through this pattern. They don't just occasionally get influenced. Their entire personality is assembled fresh each season from whatever's currently trending, then completely disassembled when the trend cycle turns. You can watch it happen in real time. They're not slowly evolving their beliefs through new information. They're doing complete replacements. Last month's version gets deleted, and this month's version gets installed, fully formed. 3 months ago, they were posting about divine feminine energy and manifestation. Now they're all cynical realism and cold heart truths. Not because they learned something new, because the aesthetic changed and they changed with it. Last year, they were soft, vulnerable, sharing emotional, unpacking content about their feelings. This year, they're closed off and guarded, posting about protecting your peace and cutting people off. The entire personality flipped because the script flipped. They adopt entire vocabularies overnight. One season it's all trauma responses and nervous system regulation. Next season it's accountability and victim mentality. The words swap out completely, but the certainty stays exactly the same. It's like watching someone change costumes while insisting they're not wearing costumes. The person underneath stays the same, but the outfit shifts to match whatever's getting the most engagement and social currency right now. There's always a delay between when something goes viral and when they make it their whole personality. You can predict what they'll be posting next week based on what's trending today. They're that consistent. They're never early adopters. They're consensus followers. They wait until an idea has enough social proof, enough visible agreement, enough validation before they mirror it back as if it's their own discovery. And here's what makes this complicated. They're not sitting there calculating this. They genuinely believe they're having original thoughts, authentic reactions, personal revelations that just happen to perfectly align with current discourse. The scary part is how natural it feels from the inside. When you're doing it, mirroring trends doesn't feel like mirroring. It feels like finally understanding, finally seeing clearly, finally getting it right. Because trends don't come alone. They come packaged with entire worldviews, complete with talking points, emotional tones, and built-in enemies. You're not just adopting an opinion, you're inheriting a whole identity framework. This is why the conviction feels so real in the moment. They're not pretending. They genuinely experience the emotions that come with the trending perspective. The anger, the validation, the sense of enlightenment, all authentic while it lasts. But there's no continuity, no thread connecting who they were 6 months ago to who they are now. Just a series of complete replacements, each version absolutely convinced it's the real one, the final form. You can't have a deep conversation with them because there's no depth to reach. Every layer you peel back reveals another borrowed phrase, another recycled take, another mirrored position copied from someone else. They speak in aggregated wisdom. Their sentences sound profound because they're stitched together from 100 different sources, each piece carrying the weight of viral validation, but none of it actually theirs.
Ask them why they believe something, and you'll get explanations that work grammatically but don't connect logically, because they learned the conclusion without walking the path to get there. They memorized the destination without traveling.
They know where they're supposed to land on every issue because they can see where everyone else landed, but they skipped the actual journey of thinking it through themselves. No struggle, no synthesis, no real understanding. This creates a strange hollowness. They have opinions on everything but positions on nothing. They're incredibly current but completely untethered. All surface, no foundation. And they're exhausting to be around because you're never actually talking to a person. You're talking to this month's trending consensus delivered through a human body. There's no individual there to connect with. Conversations never go anywhere unexpected because they can only go where the trending discourse already went. No original synthesis, no unique angle, no personal integration, just regurgitation with feeling. They're fluent in the language of depth without accessing actual depth. They can talk about shadow work, inner child healing, nervous system regulation, but it's all surface performance of emotional intelligence, not the real thing. Watch them contradict themselves completely without noticing. They'll passionately argue opposing positions 6 months apart with identical intensity. Zero awareness of the reversal, because they're not tracking their own evolution.
Each new trend is a complete reset, a fresh installation that overwrites whatever was there before. They're not building on previous understanding. They're replacing it entirely, over and over again.
What drives this isn't stupidity. It's not malice or shallowness. It's something more fundamental about how identity formation works now, in this specific moment of human history.
We evolved to learn through social mirroring. This is normal, healthy, necessary. Children develop by imitating adults. Communities form through shared beliefs. Social learning is literally how humans function.
But we evolved this mechanism in a different environment. Limited influences, stable models, family, local community, maybe a few books. The sources were consistent enough that you could actually integrate what you absorbed. Now, the influences change daily. Social models come from thousands of sources simultaneously. The consensus you're mirroring is global, algorithmic, and shifts faster than any human can actually integrate new information. So people adapted by speeding up the cycle. Instead of slowly incorporating influences into a stable self, they learned to swap influences rapidly, keep pace with the changing discourse, or get left behind. The self becomes modular, a collection of swappable components rather than an integrated whole. This month's values, this week's aesthetic, today's hot take, all designed to be replaced when something newer trends. It's an adaptation to information overload. When you can't integrate everything, you stop integrating anything. You just cycle through, performing each version fully while it lasts, then moving on. This creates people who are simultaneously very current and completely unmoored. They know all the latest discourse but have no stable center to process it from. No anchor, no through line. They're like social chameleons, but not for survival. They're matching the trending page for belonging, for relevance, for the feeling of being part of the conversation that matters right now.
Because that's what this is really about. Not belief, but belonging. Not truth, but tribal affiliation. Not understanding, but being recognized as someone who gets it, who's on the right side.
When everyone's talking about something, the social pressure to have an opinion is intense. And not just any opinion, the right opinion, the one that signals you're aligned with the current moment. For people who build identity through mirroring, this pressure is irresistible. They have to weigh in, participate, demonstrate alignment. Silence isn't an option. Nuance is weakness. Uncertainty is failure. The only acceptable response is immediate, confident agreement with whatever position is currently dominating their corner of the internet. Anything less feels like social death, like being left out. This is why they adopt new stances so completely. Lukewarm agreement doesn't provide enough social proof. They need to be all in, passionately committed, visibly aligned to secure their place in the consensus. It's performance, but not in a deceptive way. The performance is the identity. There's nothing underneath to hide or reveal. The costume is the person. The script is the self. You might think this sounds exhausting, and from outside it looks that way. But for them, it's actually relieving. They never have to figure out what they actually think because the crowd already decided. Every moral question comes pre-answered. Every complex issue is pre-resolved. Every ambiguous situation has a clear, correct response. They just have to identify the consensus and mirror it back. This eliminates the anxiety of independent thought. No risk of being wrong because they're saying what everyone's saying. No fear of isolation because they're part of the crowd. No burden of uncertainty. But it also eliminates growth. Real development comes from tension, from holding contradictions, from sitting with not knowing long enough to develop genuine insight through struggle. They skip all the tension. They go straight from ignorance to certainty by copying conclusions without doing the work. And in doing so, they never actually learn anything real. Each trend cycle is educational theater. They use all the language of learning, growth, evolution. But they remain fundamentally unchanged beneath a shifting surface. The pattern stays constant while the content rotates. What's actually stable in them isn't any belief or value. It's the mechanism itself, the ability to detect and reflect consensus. That's the core identity. Not the beliefs, but the mirroring. They're not adopting positions to understand them. They're adopting positions to belong to them, to be seen holding them, to receive the social validation that comes with visible alignment. This is why they can switch so completely. They were never attached to the content. They were attached to the feeling of being part of something, of being current, of being correct. They're emotional mirrors held up to the internet. Whatever's trending gets reflected back with the exact intensity and language required to seem legitimate, to pass as authentic. And because the internet rewards this behavior with engagement, the pattern reinforces itself. Every successful mirror gets likes, shares, validation. The mechanism strengthens every time it works. They're not bad people. They're not even doing anything wrong by most measures. They're just stuck in a loop where identity comes from external validation rather than internal integration. The problem is what gets lost? Depth, continuity, the ability to hold a position through changing trends, the capacity to say, I don't know, or I'm still figuring this out, or this is more complicated than the discourse allows. They can't sit in uncertainty because uncertainty doesn't trend. Nuance doesn't go viral. Complexity doesn't get engagement. So they flatten everything into whatever the trending take is, losing all the texture. Relationships become impossible at any real level because you can't connect with someone who has no stable self to connect to. You're always meeting a different version, always starting over. People around them eventually notice. That friend who's impossible to have a real conversation with. That coworker who agrees with everyone.
That person online who's always positioned perfectly with the consensus. There's a loneliness to this pattern because the validation is constant, but connection is impossible. They're surrounded by agreement, but isolated from genuine understanding. Seen, but not known. And on some level, they feel it, that emptiness, that sense that something's missing. But they can't name it because naming it would require stepping outside the pattern long enough to see it clearly. So what's the cost of living this way? What actually gets lost when you outsource your identity to trending discourse? First, you lose the ability to trust yourself. When your positions change completely every few months, you can't rely on your own judgment. You have no track record of consistent thought to reference. Every decision becomes dependent on external validation. You can't make a choice without checking what the consensus is first. You've lost access to internal guidance because you never developed it. Second, you lose time. Lots of it. Time you could have spent building real understanding, you spent performing temporary positions. All those hours consumed and nothing retained. Third, you lose relationships. Real ones. The kind built on knowing someone over time, through changes that make sense, through evolution that has continuity. People can't know you if you're a different person every season. Fourth, you lose self-respect. Deep down, on some level, you know. You know you're not being real. You know you're performing, and that knowing eats at you quietly. Fifth, you lose the capacity for complex thought. When you only engage with prepackaged conclusions, you lose the ability to work through complicated problems yourself. Your thinking muscles atrophy. Sixth, you lose resilience. When trends change and you haven't built a stable self, you're completely dependent on the next trend to tell you who to be. You're fragile, always one algorithm change away from crisis. Seventh, you lose credibility. People notice the pattern eventually. They stop taking you seriously. They stop engaging with your positions because they know you'll contradict them next month. And maybe most importantly, you lose the possibility of genuine transformation. Real change is slow, difficult, involves integrating contradictions. This pattern is just custom changes, fast, easy, and ultimately meaningless. But here's what's interesting. This pattern is so common now that it's almost invisible. We've normalized it, we expect people to shift completely based on trends, we've built platforms that reward it. The algorithm doesn't care if you contradicted yourself last month. It only cares if you're aligned with this month. Consistency across time is actively punished by systems that prioritize current engagement. So people are responding rationally to incentives. The environment rewards mirroring and punishes stability. Of course people adapt. Of course they optimize for what works. This means the problem isn't individual, it's systemic. We've created conditions where this behavior makes perfect sense, where it's actually the smart move for social survival. But that doesn't mean you have to participate. You can recognize the pattern, understand why it exists, and choose differently. You can build something more stable. What does the alternative look like? How do you develop a self that doesn't shift with every trending wind? First, you slow down. You create space between encountering an idea and adopting it. You let things sit. You give yourself time to actually think instead of immediately reacting. Second, you start tracking your own positions over time. Write them down. Look back. Notice where you've changed and ask why. Real evolution has reasons. Mirroring is just replacement. Third, you practice holding uncertainty. Get comfortable saying, I don't know yet, or I'm still thinking about this, or this seems more complicated than people are making it. Resist the pressure to have immediate opinions. Fourth, you build from your own experience. What have you actually lived through? What have you directly observed? Start there instead of starting with what's trending. Fifth, you choose fewer positions but hold them deeper. Instead of having viral-ready takes on everything, develop genuine understanding of a few things. Go narrow and deep instead of broad and shallow. Sixth, you find people who knew you across time. People who can say, that doesn't sound like you, or remember when you believed the opposite. You need witnesses to your own continuity. Seventh, you accept being out of step. You won't always align with the current discourse. Sometimes you'll be behind, sometimes ahead, often just different.
That's okay. That's actually better.
Eighth, you distinguish between learning and mirroring. Learning involves struggle, integration, synthesis. Mirroring is just adoption. One changes you, the other replaces you. This isn't about never being influenced. We're all influenced constantly. That's fine. That's human. The question is whether you're integrating influences or just swapping them out.
Integration takes time. It's messy. You hold old beliefs and new information simultaneously until something synthesizes. You contradict yourself temporarily while you work things out. That's real growth.
Mirroring is clean, fast, no mess. Old version deleted, new version installed, but nothing's actually happening developmentally. You're not growing, you're just changing costumes.
The path forward isn't refusing all influence. It's developing enough internal stability that influences become additions rather than replacements. They add to who you are instead of overwriting it.
You build a self strong enough to hold complexity, stable enough to withstand trend cycles, grounded enough in lived experience that you can evaluate new ideas against something real. This takes longer. It's less immediately rewarding. You won't always be perfectly aligned with the current moment, but you'll be real, coherent, actually there, and you'll be capable of real connection because people can know you, can count on you, can have conversations that build instead of constantly resetting. You'll develop actual wisdom instead of just cycling through borrowed conclusions. Wisdom requires continuity. It's pattern recognition across time. You can't develop it if you're a different person every season. The choice is yours. You can keep mirroring whatever's trending, keep getting that immediate validation, keep belonging to the current moment. Or you can build something slower, harder, and infinitely more real. The trends will keep changing. The discourse will keep shifting. The algorithm will keep rewarding whatever's current. But you don't have to change with it. You can be the stable thing in an unstable environment. You can be actually, consistently, genuinely yourself.